We're going to take it back to the year 2000 today. We got to talk about Brett Favre. Ever heard of him?
With
Never
the
heard of him.
33rd pick in the NFL draft, the Falcons choose Brett Favre.
And you know what?
How's Brett Favre doing here?
I don't remember Orville Redenbacher choosing Brett Favre to the Falcons. I don't remember that. I don't.
Favre.
And then Chris Berman there with the rescue, with the assist, making a joke out of it.
And did him a
correcting him.
favor to pick Favre.
Great job there, Berman. But Brett Favre, The Fall of Favre, Untold on Netflix, debuted last night. We talked about it briefly yesterday just to hype you up for it, but we all watched it. What are your thoughts? What were your takeaways? And here's what's crazy about life and the news cycle that we live in, especially in today's world, more now than ever, is how quickly you forget. Like, we remember the story, but you don't remember all the details. And when they're compiled into one untold documentary, you're like, yeah, damn, Brett Favre, how'd he get away with that?
Brett Favre is trash.
Like, yo,
He's
man,
trash.
I know you were a great football player and all, but this good old boy did some shady stuff.
I think it was best summed up by that Green Bay reporter who was asked to do a story about Brett Favre, the family man. And he's like, I don't write fiction. That was a great line.
It was.
With our trend of Brett Favre is trash.
He's trash.
Your takeaways, there's a few. One of them, and this wasn't even what made him trash.
Yeah, like what did you forget about? What did you learn for the first time? Has your opinion changed? I think it should have. I do. I mean, you could separate the people. He was a great football player.
Yeah.
But
Gunslinger, as they pointed out 25 times.
they did. And you know what? He did throw harder than the average quarterback. Noticeably
breaking
hard.
fingers, dude.
Breaking fingers. Great quarterback, but not a great guy. And I think a lot of us chose to forget about that. We did not.
No.
But we were reminded of other things. Even I was watching last night, Rich, and I was like, yeah, I forgot about that part. So what were your takeaways, guys? 877-99 on Fox. Let's start off with Rich. 877-99 on Fox.
My big takeaway that has nothing to do with him being trash, we'll get to that. I absolutely forgot that he adamantly retired twice and then came out of retirement quickly after. I forgot how annoying I will never play another game.
Well, the thing
before.
is,
and then,
we know because he played for the Jets and then he played for the Vikings. But you're right. I forgot how it went down as well because, again, we live in the time of the next story.
Next.
Like, what's the next story? And then you move on and you forget a little bit.
I think we owe Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers an apology because their retirement hoaxes or comebacks or anything, nothing compared to Brett Favre's double doozy of I'll never play again, Mary, to back and then back again. Like, what a pain in the ass.
Now,
And trash, by the way.
when you watch the inappropriate picture portion of the story,
Yeah.
I was reminded just how much it affected Jen Sturger.
Yeah.
Like, we knew that, and Rich, you could explain why and how we knew
Yeah,
that.
I mean, there's
but I
no-
forgot that she was doing that much in the industry. Like, she
Listen.
really had a great thing going.
What I don't want to do is this is not about me. I don't want to insert myself, but the reality is I was dating Jen during the time of this happening.
And
Spot, our video
Exactly.
guy, was her roommate. So, I mean, when you talk about being close to a story, no one could be closer.
that's why it was extra weird for us to watch. I was oddly emotional watching this. I really was. I lack empathy.
Yeah,
okay?
Rich and Spot should have been in this documentary.
I mean, I'm not even joking. You know,
or
what was,
maybe me, because they were two, like, they had biased opinions. Throw me in there.
you know what was in this documentary? My living room and my plant, which I still have.
That's right.
Covino and I were like, wait a minute, is that your plant?
So trust our perspectives, and we'd love to hear yours. 877-99 on Fox, because we've known her for years.
Yeah.
Rich really knew her on a different level.
Yeah.
Spot lived with her. She was a frequent guest on our show, and it was a sad time. But like I said, being so close, I knew her as Jen, and I knew she loved sports, and I knew she was doing cool stuff. But when you see it compiled, all the things that she did and the path she created and the opportunity she created for herself, you're like, damn, man, one guy's wiener shot got in the way of all of that momentum. That's a shame,
And
dude.
I said to Covino, to give an analogy, who does it better than me? Maybe Colin? Stars!
Just because you label yourself the guy
Stars.
with the analogies doesn't make you the best at them.
Eventually,
Stars.
it gets in your head.
I think we all give analogies.
No, mine are the best. I said to Covino, that would be like if when your career was just starting to take off.
I'm
when-
still waiting for it to take
When
off.
when
though.
we were in the early days of Maxim and Sirius XM, when our show was really starting to gain some steam, that would be like in that moment, a girl sent you a boob pic.
Ooh, who?
And because of that, your career got derailed.
Yeah, that's not fair, man. Not fair.
Doesn't seem fair now, does it?
No, not at all. And I think we were completely reminded at what a different time it was. And I wish they brought this point home more. We made this point yesterday, but let's repeat it again. If that happened in today's world, it would never go down like that. It just wouldn't. And I understand that Brett Favre was a football god and still is to a lot of people, but what he did was wrong. And in today's world, Jen would have been a victim, and Brett Favre would have had to answer a lot of questions. But
back then, they pushed her aside, and he was a hero, which is terrible.
as Jen said, she lost her show. She had a TV show that was canceled, and Brett Favre was inducted into the Hall of Fame, and his life went on, and he was the greatest, and he's doing copper fit sock commercials, right? So it's like it didn't affect him, but it completely affected her. Today's world, the Me Too movement happened. Anytime someone missteps or does something crazy like that, it's big news, man. And you're canceled. Dude, Brett Favre was still a hero.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Jen paid the price, and her career took a hit as a result.
And to fast forward to the second part of the
And
documentary.
probably, Rich, it probably affected your relationship.
I mean, no doubt.
You know, I mean, that's a whole other weird discussion
and
there.
friendships. I mean,
Yeah.
Listen, it's an awful scenario. And you know who doesn't get enough blame? That dirtbag at Deadspin, that AJ guy. Because, had he not blown up the story about Jen receiving the lewd text and everything, then it would have just been an awful experience for her that she would have had to remember and have dealt with. But by him exploiting that and blowing it up and paying someone to hack her, which is next level
You know what was
douchebaggery.
cool? What's cool about this Untold documentary is that she had the receipts, because even if you were close to the story, even if you paid close attention to the story, there was still a part of you that thought, really? She was hacked? Come on. Or you had this impression that maybe she was flirty with Brett Favre. But you learn right from the source that she never even met the guy.
And that was always the thing.
That's a big revelation.
That was always
man.
the thing that Covino, Spot, and myself always found wild from knowing Jen very well.
Because
And
people would assume that because she was a good-looking girl.
Jen's a great person, and I
but
think
people
that
would assume she was looking for opportunity, Rich.
I think that one of the biggest takeaways is that you're right. We knew it because, again, we're close to the story at the time, but we always knew that Jen had never met him, never shook his hand, and he was just a creep trying to kick it to her.
I remember that, but I forgot.
And the fact that they've never met, and he so cavalierly is like, yeah, whatever. Like, guy is, what did I say? Brett Favre is trash.
Brett Favre is trash.
Guy's
He's
a piece
trash.
the guy's a piece of ass, really. And to be honest,
Piece of ass.
no S.
Oh,
and
S.
No, he's no piece of ass.
I was going to say,
And
I
he's
never
got a
heard
little,
it
and
used like that.
He's got a little dinky too.
You'd be like, that guy's
If my dinky was that small, you would never send it to anyone. And he wore Crocs in the photo? What a loser.
That was a little tiny black box that they used to cover it up.
If they're going to blurt out your penis on TV, you hope they use a bigger box than like tiny little box.
So again, we understand how the public probably viewed it. Jen was sexy. She's a good-looking girl. Oh, she was probably flirting with Brett Favre. Even George Stephanopoulos, what's his name?
Snuffleupagus.
Yeah.
George Snuffleupagus.
Even Snuffleupagus was insinuating that it was probably flattering, right, Jen? I mean, it is Brett Favre. She's like, no, not at all, you bozo.
What a loser
Because
that
she
guy
wasn't
is.
looking for that, because she really was trying to make the most of her opportunities in the sports world.
What's up, DB?
I thought that her comeback, which was, you're insinuating that I would be flattered, was so biting. And granted, it happened, how many years ago, but that was probably the second biggest part of that documentary where you take a step back, but just
agreed. The
that
time
line.
and place we're in, that a reporter on ABC Nightly News would insinuate. I mean, Jenny, are you flattered that one of the best quarterbacks of all time sent you his junk? Like, are you out of your mind?
Yeah. This is so easy. This is so interesting considering your connection. I'm not connected to Brett Favre, but I was born and raised in Wisconsin. The first game that he appeared in with the Packers that they put in this documentary, I was at against the Cincinnati Bengals.
With that 92-yard drive.
Dude,
it was
what a performer, what a gutsy football player. The separation of these, it's wild to me.
Then in my broadcasting career, like throughout Favre's later days, the retirement stuff that you mentioned of like, there were not only like 2 official retirements, there was the one that he announced with Green Bay and the one that he announced with the Jets. It was also the previous 2 or 3 seasons where he always hinted it and wanted people to, be like, oh, come back. Yeah, but there was never a full announcement by it. But it is interesting because I was even asked what I thought about the documentary. And first of all, I don't think it even should be a Favre documentary. I figured that there was so much of Jen Sturger on it and that story, and not that the welfare stuff was just kind of put at the end, but it was so dramatic. But also this timeline of Favre was kind of felt by, I think, a lot of the people that had backed him. And when he went to the Vikings, he no longer had that aura around him from Packer fans. So everything that was wrong, that he would do wrong, you would be like, oh, okay, maybe he isn't the guy that we thought he was. And so when she says, if people are telling you who they are, believe them, I think that summed up the whole thing. I actually think I didn't learn a lot about Favre in that scenario coming from where I came from. But man, like he's just not a good guy.
Listen, as someone, like we said, who knew Jen well, knows Jen, to us, I hope there is some redemption for her. I hope this leads to a cool opportunity and someone saying, hey, this woman got her, her career shot down because of this. Maybe someone gives her a chance now. I thought another telling quote, Dan Beyer, was from former Packers coach Mike Sherman. I mean, he didn't say it, but it was quoted in the documentary where Brett Favre felt so invincible at one point where he went rogue on a play, and Mike Sherman was furious on the sideline, and Favre's attitude was like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do?
Sure.
Was the attitude towards his head coach. And listen, when you win a Super Bowl for a small market team like that, who is so thirsty since the Bart Starr, early Vince Lombardi days, of course this guy's going to be a hero. And Brett Favre on the field can't take away from the fact that he was a warrior, a gunslinger, one of the toughest SOBs to ever wear a football uniform. But off the field, it seems like we got to see what this dude's all about.
We haven't even gotten into the Volleyball Stadium story yet that Dan touched on, but that's just another layer of what
I hope it was a nice court.
What a trash bag story this is.
Hope it had nice nets.
And again, it made me oddly emotional because of the impact it had on so many people and so many lives, especially Jen's. And at the time, too, maybe because at the time when we heard about this, look, I'm just a stupid young man at the time. Right? This is 15 years ago.
You're 20-something-year-old
I'm
guy.
like, what? Brett Favre, what? No way. Not understanding or realizing the ramifications that would eventually come of it, and ruin poor Jen's career and everything. And now she has this reputation and this stigma. And again, we know it, but when you see it laid out that way, you see how much it affected her and other people. And you're like, man, this is terrible.
Why do you think Mike Vick, by the way, was he there to be like, hey, I effed with some dogs and you hate me and this guy does all this? Like, what was the
No, I think it's the opposite. It's like, here I was the most hated dude, and now now people have accepted me and I've moved forward, and you're going to hate Brett Favre even more than you hated me.
He started the contribution as, this is what it's like being a quarterback in the South, a legendary quarterback.
Yeah.
I think it was like, you think what I did was bad?
Yeah.
Wait till you get a load of this guy.
As Peter Griffin would say on Family Guy, you think that's bad.
Yeah.
And
Michael Vick said the system is rigged, and so, if you are Brett Favre, you can get away with some of that.
Okay, so now here's what I was also reminded of. Your takeaways from the Fall of Favre, controversial Netflix documentary. Number 1 today, we told you to watch it last night, gave you a homework assignment. Now we want to get to your phone calls and feedback. Again, completely remember the Jen thing. We sort of lived it.
Yeah.
Spot was living with her. Rich and her were together. She was a friend of all of ours. And, still in contact today. I totally forgot, Rich, about other Jets employees coming out afterward, other masseuses and people saying that he was sending them the same sort of messages.
I'm in my hotel and I'm horned up.
Yeah, like honestly,
He said, I have bad intentions.
yeah,
I got bad
I
intentions.
did forget about that. I
Oh.
completely forgot about that part of the story. Just adding so much to what he was really about, and got away with it. That's the
Yeah.
thing. He was unscathed for all these years.